welcome to another episode of The Mind to Lead. Today I am sat with a fantastic human being and friend, Steve Dalton. Steve, amazing to have you here.
Hi Georgie, it's great to be here.
So Steve, just for our audience, could you give a little bit of an overview into who you are and what's brought you to this point in your life right now?
Oh, good question. It's a hard one, right? Because I wear a few different hats.
Yeah.
So I'm from the UK originally, like you guys, but I've been here quite a long time now, since '99, so it's like over 20 years. I'm an engineer. I work in a company called Refactor. It's a local software electronics consultancy here on the Gold Coast. But I also wear some other hats. I have a group called TechSpace, which I started about 10 years ago, which I'm really passionate about. That's a makerspace here on the coast. And I'm also, I guess, quite actively involved in the startup community here on the Gold Coast. I don't really have a startup at this moment in time. It's a bit of a quiet one, but I love helping other people. So I've been doing some mentoring for a few of the startups on the coast, and it's been fun. That's how we kind of met through the startup hub. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, we met through Toastmasters, and I think you were the one that sort of got all that up and running in the GC hub, weren't you?
So I'm a serial starter, and I did Toastmasters. I can't remember how long ago it was. It might have been maybe 8 years ago or something, when I wanted to get some more confidence in the way I speak, because I was quite a shy person as a kid, and I always struggled with the public speaking, and not so much for doing presentations to big audiences. It was more around, when you're doing business meetings and having confidence on the board and being able to talk. So I joined Toastmasters, and it was really good. It really helped me. I think I did it for 3 or 4 years, but then my life circumstances changed, and I was doing my kid pickups at school, and I couldn't make the morning meetup, so I kind of missed it. And we were just talking last year, and I was working at the GC Hub, and I said, why don't we start a Toastmasters group? And there wasn't a group on the Gold Coast at lunchtime, and for me, I like my daytimes. I think lunchtime's a good break to do something, and I thought, well, why don't we just start one? So I reached out to my friend Chris, who I used to know from my other group, and with the help of Sharon and a few other people, we started the GC Hub one. And we kind of fell up because it was done at the GC Hub. We started this kind of entrepreneurial friendly group. It wasn't really intended that. It was actually purely selfish, really. I wanted to go to Toastmasters, and I didn't want to go in the morning, but lots of other people wanted to do it too. So, and you came along, and it's still going, and we've got a really active bunch of people. I really like the group. It's getting a lot of attention from the other Toastmasters groups, because some of the other groups can be a little bit stuffy and old school, and we've actually got this new face. Yeah. So it's been good, and I'm getting back into it again, trying not to and ah so much.
Well, I just absolutely loved it. I think for me, I was really quite nervous around public speaking myself, and I remember the first time I did Toastmasters, I stood up and I had to say my name, and my heart was racing, and I was just like,
a simple thing like an intro, right?
It's crazy, and but it really did help me become aware of that the nerves are okay. You're always going to be nervous, especially if you're speaking about something that you care about. So I'm curious to know, from your experience from Toastmasters and from who you've met over the years, like, what do you think is why do we have this big fear of public speaking?
Oh gosh, that's a good question, isn't it? I don't know. For me, it was always. I guess it's not the same for everyone, but for me, as a young person, even though I was really tall and I was this kind of bigger than life person, I was kind of, I used to hide in the shadows quite a bit, and it was kind of, I just want to keep a bit of a low profile. In my family group, my close friends, I was outgoing, but when I got into big situations like school, and I was in Scouts and Boys Brigade and things like that, I would often be kind of hiding away a bit. So I think it's kind of easy to do that, right? But in life, we have to kind of step forward. That's the only way we're going to actually get ahead, is to take a bit of a leap of faith. So, and I think that whole leap of faith, that getting out of your comfort zone is really hard, right? And I talk about that to a lot of people, about comfort zone. It's called a comfort zone for a reason, right? It's super comfy over there. So I think that's just really hard for people. Even just, as you say, just standing up and introducing yourself, that you see so many people just fall over their own name, or just they've only got to say about 6 words, and people who are usually quite confident people to speak one-on-one in front of 15, 20 people will balk at it. So I don't know, maybe there's some long evolutionary thing going back in our genes about it, but it's the number one fear, isn't it? More than death.
Yeah.
Just like crazy.
What do they say? People would rather be in the coffin than speak at their own funeral, like, which I just found bizarre. But I think I'm curious to know as well, because I'm really passionate about self-belief and confidence. So you said that you were quite a shy kid in school, as was I. But how did you go about creating that confidence, and you're able to now stand up in Toastmasters, speak. I've heard some amazing talks that you've done. So what steps did you take to build that up over the years?
So I don't think I made a real conscious step to change it. I actually accidentally fell into a few things. When I was at university, I was still kind of pretty quiet at uni actually, but I took a year out from uni. I was doing kind of poorly in my second year of uni, and I just happened to kind of see this job ad to do like a year off, and that really pushed me into something, and that took me down another track, right, down the road. And I went and worked at IBM for a year, and that introduced me to a large amount of people, and I was kind of put into roles that were way more senior than I should have been, and I just followed down this trail. I'm not sure where I'm going with the question here, but it was accidental initially. And I think once I got a little bit of an endorphin rush from that, actually, this is pretty good. I can do this, even though, and people actually won't be judging me, or like when it's at school, it's different, right? There's bullying and all sorts of things like that. In the real world, people are actually generally pretty nice. Like we're Gen X, right? I read a thing about Gen X yesterday about bullies weren't bullies in the Gen X era; they were the cool kids. Whereas now, it was like there was a lot of that at school, right? And you didn't want to stand out because people would pick on you. But once I got out into this adult world, it was like, oh, actually, people don't mind you having a go. And then after uni, I went to America and did this summer camp experience, actually, where I met my wife. And again, that was another like jump. And so every time I kind of leveled up a bit, I thought, actually, this is started to kind of soften. And I'm like, this is actually really good. People like it and appreciate it. Well, it's not a scary thing. But yeah, I don't think I made a conscious effort to go. I think I could have easily just stayed like that for quite a long time. So,
but it sounds to me like you just sort of, you went for things, you weren't afraid to sort of put yourself out of your comfort zone. And I guess what's really interesting is when you are out of your comfort zone, you're doing it and you're standing up, giving a speech, you go, this isn't actually as bad as what I thought it was going to be, and the more you do it, the more you realize actually it's not as hard as what we first thought it was going to be. And
you do get into this, I guess, different mindset where you're like, actually, I don't really care what people think. Like we're doing a podcast now, and we're going to be posted on the internet, public to people, and like that would scare a lot of people. But now I'm like, well, people can just take you as you are, and if you don't agree with what we say or don't like the way we sit or look or speak or whatever, I actually don't care. So I guess once you make that jump about like, maybe care is the wrong word, but you can do anything then. Yeah. But if you kind of have that kind of fear of what people think of you, then that's quite constrictive, right?
100%. And I think you just touched on something huge, because I think that there is a lot of fear circulating right now from a lot of conversations I'm having offline with people who are saying to me, I could never do a podcast. What if somebody thought it was no good, and what if I'm no good? And like people seem to care a lot about what people think. And what's really interesting is they care more about the people that are close to them. They care about what their parents are thinking, what their friends are thinking. So I'd love your thoughts on that. Like, how can people not care as much about what others think? Like, how did you go about that? Because that's quite a skill in itself.
Yeah, I don't know, it's hard, right? I think for me, the big one for me was doing the summer camp thing, right? So I had to, and going to America and be in front of, I don't know if you know much about the American summer camp way that all these kids go off to camp every summer, and it's not just the kids, there's a whole lot of teachers and counsellors, and the people who are in the counsellor network that work as summer camp counsellors are generally, some of the teachers are a little bit of outcasts. They're not always mainstream, and I think there was an attitude in that summer camp group. There was a lot of people that were just, whatever, I'm just going to go with the flow. And at the same side, the kids themselves were, some of them were pretty gregarious and pretty out there, and they were like, come on, Steve, do this, do this, do that. So That was a big one for me. That really just got me into this whole, kind of, I guess, no worries, don't worry about it. Mm-hmm. What is it? Kuna Matata?
Yeah.
That kind of just go with it.
Yeah.
No one really cares. So that was, and coming from like a very sort of the British kind of stuffy, kind of conservative way of thinking. And then as a British person in the US as well, that also, I got dragged into it too, because they're like, "Oh, you're from England." They were like, "You really stand out," especially in the east coast of the US, in that whole New England area. They love the Brits. So like, oh, say something. Yeah. They want to hear your accent. They want to know everything. They want to know about the royal family. And like, you're like, whoa, I'm just getting like dragged into this. Yeah. So yeah, that was a big jump, I think, doing that. I'd highly recommend it to anyone who wants to get out of the shell, go and do that. It's amazing. But I can't remember what the original question was now.
I think it's just having not caring as much what people think. But I think from what my takeaway from that is basically just getting outside of your normal environment and putting yourself out of your comfort zone, doing something that's going to challenge you, meeting new people. So I think as well, going back to, I guess, what I said before of like the biggest fear for people is being judged by others, but the people that we're most afraid of being judged by are the people in our inner circle. And I'd like to go back into like how you started your businesses as well in a moment, but I think, if you then surround yourself with people who are also pushing themselves out of their comfort zone, who are also striving to be better every day, then that fear kind of does go away because you're supporting one another. Absolutely. And that's why I loved Toastmasters so much, is because I didn't feel judged. I didn't feel like I was making a fool of myself, because everybody was in the same position, pushing themselves out of their comfort zone, and there was just this wonderful culture that we created where it just felt really safe.
Yeah, it's a very safe space, right? That's what I love about it. And there's a few other groups I've been part of since then as well, like the Peak Persona group that we did with Aaron Birkby and those guys. That's more of an online group. That's a very safe space where people feel very comfortable. I guess the same thing in some of the co-working spaces. A lot more people are talking about their minds, and like Damien's talk a few weeks ago, we're talking about mental health and all sorts of things now. People are, I guess, much more vulnerable, and so we have that place we can actually talk. So it's actually interesting when I go and work in a kind of corporate environments where they're actually, some of those corporates are trying really hard actually, but there's still this kind of, especially in government and government departments and things like that, some of them are still kind of in this old kind of keep your cards close to your chest thing, and you go into kind of startup world, it's like, whoa, it can be quite out there. People are very open and talk about all sorts of things. So yeah, Toastmasters in particular, I think is really good. They've really fostered that safe space thing, and you'll hear people say that quite a bit. This is a safe space. Like, I don't know what happened when you were there, but we've had in the past with Toastmasters, some people come on in front of us to do their talk and they literally just totally block up. Wow. And they can't even say a word, and they sometimes even cry and go off the stage. And those people come back though. Like 2 weeks later, they might be back and they do it. Amazing. And then they get a standing ovation, and it's like, oh, you did it. Yeah. But like support. It's some people. So there's a great support network there. So if we can foster that and keep doing that in other things, I think it's definitely a good lesson there.
Absolutely. If you could bring that safe space into organizations, into when you're hiring, when you're building out your own culture, your own business, where people aren't afraid to make mistakes, or no question is silly, and that would build incredible organizations. So your business now, you've got 10 people currently working for you. Yeah. So what kind of leader are you, Steve?
So it's an interesting team. I didn't actually really set out to be the leader. It was actually 3 of us that started the business about almost 12 years ago. And one of the founders decided to go back to New Zealand. So there was 3 of us. We were quite a good trilogy. But then it was left with me and Rob. And Rob is awesome business partner, but he's quieter. He's definitely more heads down. And so I kind of just ended up gravitating to being the kind of leader guy who did everything. So I've kind of had to just play it by ear. And one of the things I stumbled upon pretty early was just being like super transparent with everyone, which is kind of how I've always been anyway. But I was a bit nervous about it at first, because people were saying to me, oh yeah, you can't be friends with your employees. You shouldn't say that. You shouldn't do that. You got to keep them at a distance. And I've actually not done that at all. So I am friends with all my employees. We don't go out all the time, but some of them go out with each other, and they've got a good network. But I'll also socialise with them, but I'll be quite transparent to the point with giving them even all sorts of information about the business, sometimes even money. People are very shy of sometimes telling their employees about money and numbers and things like that. I'll be quite open about that, even with the junior guys. And I think that's people have really appreciated that. And I'm just halfway through reading the Radical Candor book. I don't know if you've seen that one. She talks very much about transparency. And I was like, oh, actually, I'm actually onto something good here. I didn't realise. So that's been a big part of my leadership style, and just being very open, and keeping it real with the people, not being too scary.
Yeah, and I think that is actually amazing. The fact that you've just naturally done that without even realizing you're doing it. But I think ultimately it's trust, right? Trust and honesty, and it just goes such a long way. And I'd love to know. So, I mean, obviously you've got 10 people now. Like, what's been your biggest challenge as a leader, as you've sort of grown the team? What sort of challenges, failures have you kind of come across from in the 12 years that you've been doing this?
So I think we were small for quite a long time. We had a couple of employees kind of on and off. It's only in the last year or two where we've got the team to a good critical mass now, where people can actually help each other. Initially, it was a lot of me or us at the top kind of instructing people. There wasn't a lot of, because we were very technical, so we're all like software developers and electronics guys. It's all very hardcore technical stuff, and often it was all kind of down from the top. There wasn't a lot of people helping each other at the lower levels. So whereas now we've got a good base of people, and they all are helping each other. So we're getting training happening across the board now, rather than it just all coming down all the time. So I've got some new juniors at the moment, and they're going really, really well actually. And some of the kind of less junior people are mentoring those people without even realizing they're mentoring. Actually, they've just and now we're actually a bit more together. We're not all in the same place. We're not too spread around. It's been that's been really good to see people taking on that ownership of spreading knowledge around. And that's, I guess, what we learned from doing TechSpace and a few of those other things. It's like that different way of learning rather than instructional classroom. It's much more like the village. Like I was thinking about this morning, about how, when we came out of the caves or whatever, and we became into villages, I'm sure people didn't stand at the front with a board and instruct the whole village like a classroom. It was probably more like hands-on, people in the village showing people how to do things. If they were hunting, it would be going out and doing hunting together. It wouldn't be, now we're going to learn the fundamentals of a bow. Yeah. So I think we do a lot of that kind of peer-to-peer learning off each other, and recognizing as a leader, I think you can learn a lot from your junior people as well, right? So often they're surpassing me in technical knowledge about things, and don't be precious about that. They're gonna actually teach you things, right?
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I think that there's too many leaders out there that are actually afraid to hire people that, quote unquote, maybe are better than them.
Yeah.
But I just say I want to hire smart, intelligent people into my business. I want to learn. I'm a student for life, and I think the younger generation coming through, they've grown up with technology. They might have quicker ways of doing things, and I think as a leader, one of the biggest mistakes that we could ever make is not be open to new ways of working. And I just love what you just said then, that I'm learning from my juniors, because we've all got stuff to share. Yeah. Everyone's got a story, everyone's got new ways of doing things. And I just think that culture that you've created where everyone feels empowered to help one another, and that peer-to-peer learning is incredible. So let's talk about the TechSpace then, because I'd love to learn more about that.
Yeah, so TechSpace, it's interesting. It's been going 10 years. I was actually looking at some of the photos last night, because we had a committee meeting, and I pulled some photos from when we started in July 2010. And when we first had our little meeting, we met in a pub, and it was like we wanted to make this little club, and we didn't really know where we were going with it. So we wanted to build they call them hacker spaces or maker spaces, but some people don't like the word hacker because it sounds like illegal, but I actually like the word. So there was a lot of hacker spaces around the world. Back in 2010, there wasn't too many in Australia. There was a pretty good one in Brisbane that had just started, and we went and had a look and saw what they were doing. Everyone was starting to build 3D printers back then in 2010. There was this type of 3D printer that was quite easy to build at home. And we wanted to build a 3D printer. We wanted to make a little club for ourselves so it was a geek club, really, I guess, a place for people to go hang out. And so we started this club, and it was interesting. We had no idea what we were doing. We ended up renting a commercial property in Southport, and we thought, we need about 20 members to break even. We can get 20 members, surely, paying some money. And it was actually a big flop. We ended up putting thousands of dollars of our own money into it to try and keep the rent going. Lots of people turned up, but no one wanted to pay anything. So we were like, crap, we've done some, what have we done here? So we managed to keep it going. We went through a few different places. The council actually helped us out in the end. We threatened to close a couple of times, and they gave us some free space. And 10 years later, we're now in a place in Montreal, which is partially funded by the council. And the group has changed a lot since those early days. It's not really a kind of a men's geek club anymore. Like, we do have some female members, which is really good. We have quite a diverse range of people that come along. It's not just like your hardcore geeks. And people come along, and it's kind of hard to describe, but that we learn from each other. A lot of people are doing electronics, but there's also people doing programming. We have kids coming in who just want to learn tech. They're not really getting what they need from school. We've got students that come that are in uni, and they're kind of a little bit stuck on things. There's a whole range of people that turn up. Some people just want to 3D print stuff. Some people want to see a laser cutter, or they want to see a certain type of machine, or buy some electronics. It's pretty random, but works really, really well. Yeah. And there's a really nice group of people that come there. Some of us do pay our memberships now, so we actually are financially viable. And it's very welcoming, friendly. It's still a bit of a geek club. But that peer-to-peer learning thing is where I kind of honed a lot of that. And I saw where people helped each other. And so we've got 40 odd members at the moment. It's about 900 members on our list, and about 200 or 300 people interact virtually. We have a Slack channel, which is really, really active, and people just help each other out for no reason sometimes, just because someone asked.
I think as well it goes maybe deeper than that, and I think people are actually now looking for connections. I think, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, but we live in a technology has advanced us so much, but it's actually making us less social. And I think that events like the TechSpace one, where people can get together, there's common interest straight away, it's a safe space where people are learning off one another. I think that's only going to continue to grow as social media grows, because I think people are looking for connections and networks and just sort of to meet people that are on their wavelength. So I think what you've created is fantastic.
Yeah, so I didn't realise this when I first started it, but I think about 50% of it's all about fellowship. People want fellowship, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking about, I don't go to church anymore, but I grew up in a Christian family, and we used to go to church every week, and you do the whole fellowship thing halfway through the service, peace be with you, and did the shaking hands. You get to meet people, and that was like your fellowship. And that was kind of nice, even though I didn't believe in any of it. Sorry for people who are religious. But the fellowship part of church I thought was really good. And so when we did the TechSpace, quite a few people are kind of lonely, actually, and they want to get out and they want to meet people. They don't want to be best buddies with the people. They just want to be around people. So having like a bit of a fellowship and say, oh, these are my people, right? This is my kin, or whatever you want to call it, I think is quite nice. Yeah. So that's kind of, so I used to call it tech fellowship for people, because it's like, this is like your tech church.
I love it. But I love it, and I think it's only going to grow in momentum. I really do. I think that it's part of the reason why I want to start the podcast is because I know so many incredible people, and I just don't think we have deep conversations anymore. It's very surface level, and I think that more people need to feel connected and feel like they can open up and be vulnerable in safe spaces. And I think what you're doing is fantastic, and it's only going to build in momentum. So if you're on the coast, go and check out TechSpace.
Wednesday nights.
Yeah, Wednesday nights, love it. Or Toastmasters.
Did
that's
you
also
see
fantastic.
just talking about connection? Did you see the girl that's doing the 100 lunches with strangers thing?
No.
So I think she's on lunch 250 now.
Wow.
So she didn't know anyone, and I actually reached out to her and said, "I'm happy to have lunch with you." She's on LinkedIn. I think she's in Melbourne. She's a business business analyst. She didn't know anyone. I think her English wasn't so good. So she just stumbled upon this thing. She said, I'm going to reach out to people and ask them will they go for lunch. So she started going to lunch with people every week, just lunch with strangers. And she ended up meeting quite a lot of famous, quite influential people. And the 200th lunch she had was with the guy, you know, the guy who played Kenny in the movie, the plumber movie, the Aussie guy. I can't remember his name. But anyway, she wrote a book. It's called 100 Lunches with Strangers. She's got a TEDx and everything. But she just started from nothing, reached out to people. But she's now got this momentum of this lunches with strangers thing. So she just did it without any help, just with LinkedIn.
Yeah, wow. And that just shows as well the call for it, because that's built so much momentum, because everyone's kind of feeling the same way. Like, I want to feel a part of something, I want to connect, I want to live in a community, you know, and I guess if you find some people that are on the same wavelength as you, even more amazing. So I'd like to touch on now, because you said that you're mentoring some startups. So I'd love to sort of hear about sort of how you go about doing that, and what's your experience been working with new entrepreneurs that are looking to start their business?
Yeah, interesting. I don't know. Have you done mentoring before? I don't even know what mentoring means sometimes these days,
that's
right?
it, right? You know, I guess it's helping people seek clarity.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the time they have an idea, but they don't know where to start.
Yeah.
Or they've got some fear that's holding them back. So I think it's not necessarily giving people all the answers. It's asking them better questions.
Yeah, definitely. So I was never there's no training course for mentors, right?
No.
And you get asked, can you be a mentor? And you go, all right. And then you're like, how do I do this now?
Yeah.
And I know some people do kind of mentors, and I've had a bit of help from people in the past. But so I do offer myself as a mentor, but I don't really see myself as a mentor sometimes. I do hate to see people stuck though, and definitely with the tech stuff, people get stuck. They go down a whole track of I need to build something, and then sometimes they'll offshore, or they'll go and make all sorts of mistakes because they don't have help. So I love helping people early, just maybe trying to avoid the pitfalls. Not that offshoring's bad, it can be great, but there's lots of pitfalls there. There's lots of other things people get stuck with as well. So I think on the tech side, definitely some early help is really good. And I just hate to see people when they come to me later on and I can't really help them, and they're like, I've already spent $50,000, I've got no money in my bank account, and I've got a dispute with some offshore developers, and I'm like, we could have actually probably solved this if we'd have had a chat a year ago. So I do the tech stuff, but also I guess as I've done a bit of startups myself, and I've done some facilitating of startup courses and things like that, and I've read all the books, right? You can read all the books. So I'll try my best to help people, but at the same time, I do know my limits, and I don't try and tell everyone everything, and I'll definitely say to people, get other advice, and you're probably going to get 3 different opposite advice from people, and you have to just kind of do that, and that's normal. I think people get freaked out when they talk to one mentor and then another one says the opposite, and then that happened the other week at Startup Weekend. There was 3 different mentors in one room, and they said the startup said they all told me different things. So the mentoring's been interesting. As you say, it's all about questions, right? So I think you do get better at asking those key questions and kind of then shutting up for a bit and just letting them answer, right?
That's the key, right? Yeah, that's the key. It's just pause and let them do because eventually they will figure it out themselves. I think you just kind of got to steer them the right way. But in terms of when you're working with people, are there common threads, common mistakes, or common questions that you do get asked that people are,
I think people, people haven't read the fundamental books and startup material. The amount of people like me who, it's not the Bible or anything, but Lean Startup's a good book, right, to start with. So many people have not read that, or not even read the intro of it, or have any concept of it. That is how Silicon Valley is pretty much built on the Lean Startup, at least be knowledgeable about it and know it. So people haven't done any homework at all. So I recommend people read the Lean Startup. They go look at the Steve Blank How to Make a Startup Lean Launchpad course, which is only 6 hours of your time. And you'll get that's pretty old, that course now, but I love it. So doing the homework, people just haven't done that at all. And yet they'll have invested weeks, sometimes even years of their time mulling over ideas and doing all this other stuff when they haven't actually bothered. I see I'm looking up at your books as I say this.
I'm a bit of a reader.
So that's definitely something I've been encouraging people to do, to do a bit of homework. And the other thing is, like, as a developer, they come to me and they ask me, oh, can you build me something? They want to actually code something straight away. They think they have to code an MVP and they have to build something, a minimum viable product. And they don't have any idea that a minimum viable product doesn't have to be code. It doesn't have, you don't need a software developer. You can actually try the startup's an experiment, right? So you can try a lot of things without writing anything. So you can use cloud tools, but you can even just use a piece of paper or a conversation, right? Have a coffee with someone and ask them, scribble something on a piece of paper. So I think there's a lot of, for people who are non-technical, I'm talking about non-technical founders here actually, they have this idea that if they can get a developer and a programmer, everything will be fine.
Yeah.
But I think that's really dangerous. So they're quite surprised when me as a technical person says, don't write any code, please.
Wow, where were you when Kyle and I launched Fly, was all I'm going to say, because we made every mistake in the book with that first business, but such valuable lessons learned, and certainly we wouldn't be where we are now today if we hadn't gone through that journey. Yep. But I just think that more people should step up because everyone's, like I said, got a story. Everyone's got some wisdom to share. And I just love the fact that you are taking it upon yourself to say, look, I don't have all the answers, but I can help you with a few things here. And how important do you think the whole, I mean, on my bookshelf here, I've read a lot of Simon Sinek's work and I think he's fantastic, but that whole start with why. Do you think so when people come up with an idea, how important is the why behind it, do you think?
Yeah, I think that's really important. I did it just yesterday. Actually, one of my employees, I hope he doesn't mind me talking about him, I won't name him, but he's got a side hustle startup and he was nervous about asking me about it because I'm his employer as well. But I just started doing the whole 6 whys thing on him. Why are you doing this? Why? No, it wasn't to be an ass or anything, you know. It was just like, let's get to the root of why you want to do the startup. It's not, we started talking about accelerators and money and stuff. It wasn't anything to do with that at all once you actually drill down to it. So I like the whys thing. It's 6 whys, right? Is it 6 whys? Yeah. So I've done that a few times now. Someone else taught me that. I didn't read the book. Someone just said, I'll try the why thing. I didn't even know why to say the why. I just kept saying why, and I'm like, oh, right, okay, this works. I wish I'd have done this on myself.
But it's interesting because I think a lot of people's whys are the same. It's, we want freedom, we want happiness, we want contribution, we want to feel like we're building something that's going to make the world better. You know, everyone's sort of, if you strip it right back, you get away all the fluff. It is just that whole, well, from what I've seen, what I've experienced, it is contribution, happiness, freedom. I think that's, if we can get to that and people can really understand that piece and then build a business around that, then we'll have a lot more people and entrepreneurs and startups that are really building fantastic businesses that go to last. So I think people get so caught up in, oh, I need to get X amount of funding, or I need to go through that accelerator program, or I need to do this and this. It's actually just strip it all back and work out what's important to you. And, you know, I think that a lot of people start businesses maybe for the money as well sometimes, and that's fine, that's great, but maybe what they don't realize is they don't actually need as much money as what they think to live the lifestyle that they really want. I think, and
if all you want is money, there's probably way easier ways to make a lot of money than a startup, right?
Oh, because how hard is it?
Yeah, it's freaking hard, right? If you want to make money, just go on, I don't know, find a niche product and jump on eBay or something and just sell stuff. I don't know. There's probably way better ways to do it. But I think with the wise thing, it's interesting what you just said, because you mentioned, you know, make the world better, happiness, all those sorts of things. I think people are starting to think more about that, and I was reading about priming this morning on one of a book, you know, about how when you prime people with money. Have you seen the research around that, where you give them all the money words and then see how they react and they become more selfish and there's all these things happen, right? But if you prime people with other words that aren't around, it's not dollar bills, right? Then they go on a totally different trajectory, right? Yeah. So if you start thinking about how can we, you know, people are talking a lot about environment at the moment, right? So if you start thinking about how can we, you know, save our planet, or you know, how can you combat, you know, problems, how can you address mental illness or something that you care about, then you can follow a totally different trajectory, and then you might still make loads of money anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you'll be happy doing it.
Correct. How important do you think, you just mentioned something that I'm quite passionate about there, about that whole priming thing. Do you have any like routines or things that you do religiously every morning or before you get into work, be with your team?
A bit out of routine at the moment, so it's a funny time to ask me. But up until a few weeks ago, I was doing the very early starts, early morning starts, and I think you said it in one of your podcasts about like that early start should be about you. It's time for you. Yeah. So I was doing that and doing walking in the morning, and then I do some of my planning and things around my own personal planning, not necessarily business planning, so that my day can go better. So I'm definitely a morning early person. I'm a little bit out of routine at the moment. So as of next week, I'm going to be back into it. I need to get to bed earlier, and then it becomes a lot easier. But yeah, definitely that early time for me, if I can set my day up at the start of the day and do all of those things, then my day can go really well. But if I've got a lot on my mind, a lot on my plate, then the day quickly turns to crap, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. And then I think if you don't look after yourself, then you can't look after your team, and then it has an impact and a ripple effect, right? So if you show up at work and you feel, I'm just not in the right zone today, what do you do? How can you then show up as a better leader? Do you have any ways around that, or advice for people that maybe are out of routine right now, or not feeling in the best headspace? Is there any tips or tactics?
I'll do the afternoon. I'll do my more talky, chatty stuff, and do my meetings. My morning, I'll try and be more productive. I'll do the headstand work. The afternoon, as long as if I get a few things out of the way in the morning, then in the afternoon, I'll give myself permission to kind of meander a little bit, maybe phone some people. I really recommend it, especially now we're talking about recession and stuff. Like, go and call all your clients, go call even your friends, just anyone you've worked with in the past, and don't call them for work or anything. Just call them to say hello, and like if you're looking for, just go and talk to someone. So I quite like the afternoons. I'll just make a couple of phone calls and just reach out to people, just say hi, how you going, and that breaks my day up quite nicely, I think, to have a bit of social, or just go and talk to the team, or go and help someone. Or so my afternoons often are kind of chatty, and my morning is a bit more head down. So that's kind of, I guess, for me, if I need to do a bit of a circuit break, I'll come and do a podcast.
Yeah, perfect. Mix of the day. But I think, like, how important do you think that whole like planning is of your day, or just to sort of know the times when you need to be focused, when the times you can be a little bit more in flow. Like, how important do you think it is for people to have a bit of a structure?
Yeah, I think the context switching thing is I don't know if you've read it's Dave Allen, isn't it? The Getting Things Done book, where he talks about like try and have your context. So like maybe do your phone calls in a block, read your emails in a block, or don't read your emails at all, if preferably. But like turn off distractions and things like that. So I think that. And I'm just reading the Daniel Kahneman book at the moment, the Thinking Fast and Slow, and it's talking about the System 2 brain, where you've got the context. It's a slow brain, and you don't want to be like context shifting, and that's the context shifting, I think, can really be a killer. I think particularly for technical people, it can almost send you mad. Like if you are like doing too many things and context shifting, I've seen some people really like quite impacted by that, including myself, actually, just doing too many context shifts, trying to run like 7, it's the spinning plates thing, like the circus. So if you can cut down on the amount of things you're doing, but if you are doing a lot of things, at least kind of batch them up a bit. I think that can do wonders for your sanity. But I guess as you get a bigger team as well, you can delegate, right? So delegation is like amazing if you can get that working well. And I think your junior members appreciate it too, right? If you're giving them something important rather than just giving them make work, actually delegating a really important task to a junior is great for you, but I think it's great for their personal growth as well. So I think, the delegation and the context shifting for me has been like, I guess, the big game changers on a planning, on a day, personal day. My planning still isn't great. I have a task on Sunday evenings is kind of like, I used to call it climb the tree. Climb the tree and kind of have a look around, if you're in the forest. like isn't Lord of the Rings where he climbs up and goes up? Used to have this climb the tree thing, which I need to get back into. It's like, take a moment on Sunday and just kind of climb the tree, have a look around, and it's not like hard planning, but just like have a think about your week ahead. I need to get back into the habit of that, I think. And then I guess just the daily, like have more Trello boards and the usual stuff. I think you've got all the boards and planning boards as well, right? But you can go crazy with that too, right?
I know,
to
that's
the point
it,
where it's
that's
like
it.
planning,
you got
planning for planning.
Yeah,
and
correct. I think it's just ultimately like there's so many books on there about time management. There's so many things that people say to do. It's finding out what works for you. I think for me, I like to plan my week on a Sunday or just kind of get some altitude, be like, right, what are my key tasks next week? What am I working on? What's my goals? And then having my top 3 things that just need to get done, and then a few things that would move me forward in my life. And I think that's really making it as simple as possible, because people, they go, oh, I need to bucket things, and they have all the best intention of like making their diary look all pretty and color coded, and then it actually something can just come up that just throws your whole day out, and that can happen, and that's okay. And people beat themselves up. And I just actually like to ask you, so as a leader and you've got 10 people in your team, when people come and say, if you're in a task and you're in the zone, but someone comes and asks you a question, are you quite strict to say, right, team, I'm in the zone now, don't disturb me? Or how do you go about setting boundaries almost with your team?
I guess you have to kind of like push back a little bit, but not for too long, otherwise I'll forget about it. And then people keep coming back, like, I've come back 4 times today. So I know some people use their headphones, right, and they just put their headphones on. I'll generally just do can we just hold on a minute? Some of my team are really super nice to the point of being over the top. They'll like send me a Slack message even though they're just sitting next to me. Can I interrupt you in a bit? I'm like, well, you don't have to kind of do that. But I think for me, I'm not terrible being interrupted. I've got 2 kids who are interrupting me all the time, and I can zone out pretty easily. My wife hates it, the fact that I can just literally turn off my audio receptors and be quiet. And if people see I'm just getting on with things, they won't interrupt. But I don't have a great answer for that. But there are times where you have to take yourself away, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that might be headphones, or it might be I'm going to go and actually go and work at the cafe down the road, or I'm going to do the third place thing. You know about the third place? No. So that's kind of like, your home, your work, have your third place. So I sometimes do an hour at the cafe near school in the morning. After I've dropped the kids from school, the traffic's crazy. I just go to the cafe and I do an hour there before I hit the office. And just get a lot of things out of the way. I don't take any phone calls either. The phone's off, email's off. I've already got my list of things to do. I don't need to look at email. That's really good. The third place, I'd really recommend that to people who struggle with the homework thing. Some people who work at home as well, Aaron will talk about this if you ever meet Aaron. If you work at home, they'll actually go leave home in the morning, go to the third place for an hour, and then like enter their home even via a different door. Okay. To say, well, this is me like going into my work. Okay, I like so your house is, I guess you're upstairs here, but some people have a home office that's got a separate little door, and they'll go and they'll even get changed into different clothes. I have to do say that like as well. Work persona. And they'll sometimes use the third place as a what do you call it, a transition. I like zone, that. Right?
Yeah, I really like that. I read 7 Habits of
highly effective people.
No, I've read that, but high performance habits, and by Brendan Burchard. I highly recommend it. And he basically said a lot of people lose a lot of time in the transition from one task to the next. But I love what you just said then about just sort of like having that third place and entering it with intention to be like, right, now I'm going to work, or now I'm going to do that task. I think I love that third place. Yeah. I'm going to get myself a third place, definitely.
Yeah, and that could just be, often it's a cafe or a library or somewhere. For some people, the third place is just actually like on their commute. It's like, you'd say about listening to podcasts on your commute. You have this kind of transition between your home and work, right? Get yourself in the mindset. Might be listening to a good,
Yeah, I love that.
There's some good podcasts around.
There absolutely are. Mind to Lead being one of them. Look, it's been an absolute pleasure, Steve. I've loved having you here. My final question are, what do you think 3 skills every leader should try and master?
Ooh, hard questions. Damien asked me hard questions.
You can say one. One's good enough.
No, that's good.
Same for three.
So I think, I really like this radical candor thing. And I've definitely noticed I am in this. If you read the book, there's the 4 quadrants. She talks about radical candor. That's where you're open, transparent with people, but you're also direct. And there's this other quadrant that she has at the top left, which is kind of the dangerous quadrant, which is where you're like really nice and open with people, but you're not direct with them, and you'll tell people, what would she call it? Something insincerity. So I do that. I've done that quite a bit in the past, where you haven't actually been honest with people. You've been too nice to people. Haven't actually directly told them what you think, right. But you. So you've got to get to that point where you've got the radical candor, where you're open and with people, but you're honest and direct, and you can actually do that rather than just kind of killing people with kindness. Yeah. And she actually says that quadrant on the left is kind of even worse than the bottom left one, which is where you don't care and you're not direct either. So that's actually the root of a lot of management problems. Right. So I'm trying to get to that top right quadrant in her book. And I've told a few other people about it too, and they're like, they'll get that totally. So I think being open and honest with people, and actually telling them when you're not happy, and actually doing that in a constructive way, not being there's another quadrant down the bottom right, which is the people who are direct and don't care. Yeah. And that's I don't want to be that person either. No. So I like the radical candor, but I haven't finished the book yet, so I probably can't do a full summary of it. But the transparency I talked about before. And I think, just being fearless, right? Which is, something that, I had probably a lot of fear in my early life, but I think I'm pretty fearless now. So I think I encourage everyone to be fearless. Don't worry about it and just get on with it. Yeah. And you're fearless because you kept on pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. Yes. And meeting new people and doing all that. So I think there's a lot of lessons in today's podcast, Steve. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here. So thank you so much. Thanks, Georgie. It's been great. I didn't and ah too much. No, you didn't. It was really good. And final question, where can everyone find you if they want to find out more about you? You can find me on LinkedIn, although it's kind of locked down at the moment. So you'll need my email address, which is the key thing. Okay. So you need steve@refactor.com.au. That's just to stop all the spammers and people trying to sell me stuff. And the recruiters. I only let the nicest recruiters into my LinkedIn. Amazing. Thank you so much. Cool. Thanks, Georgie. Thank you so much for listening to the Mind to Lead podcast. I really hope you got some great takeaways and key learnings from this episode. To help us spread the message, please give us a rating and leave us a review. We love reading your thoughts and your insights and your learnings. And look, reach out to me. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm Georgie Hubbard. Reach out to me on Instagram. I'm Georgie L. Hubbard. Let's connect. I hope you have an incredible day, and I look forward to speaking to you all again soon.